currently streaming to Twitch. I'm going to share my screen. Cool. Can everybody see my screen? Cool. Let me just clear some of this stuff out. Yeah, so for today's session, I thought we could like take a step back and look a bit more at like what we're doing and sort of make it a bit more of like a professional kind of project. So any kind of professional project requires a Jira board. It's kind of a joke, but also kind of true. So
I thought you were just gonna like make me wear a tie. I didn't know we were gonna have to use Jira. Come on.
Sorry. It's Jira Cloud though, which is like actually a lot nicer than self-hosted Jira. So if you had like problems with Jira before, like I have, it's most likely because the feature doesn't exist on the version of Jira you have. But using this as like a free Jira account, it's like way better than the enterprise. Go figure. But yeah, so we're just going to be like creating like tickets to like organize our work, and also so it's not as like chaotic, but also so everyone can sort of see like how Taylor and I would work like on a real project too. So we have like one ticket. We started working on this last time, but like now we have like an actual ticket here. I think if you look very carefully, you'll see that I actually created this quite a while ago, because this is I wasn't lying when I said this is a project that I wanted to build. So we got like our beer logging form as our ticket. I'm going to move this over. Also, I'm using Moom. If anyone is curious about like the window management app, that's what I'm using. Let's bring it over. For that window management, that was just my mouse. So let's bring over this. We get our terminal up and we can start the Metro bundler. And we can also start the iOS builds, which should be relatively quick because we haven't done like haven't added any new dependencies. So it should be working fine with the cache that we have. So that should be up in just a minute. I'm gonna hide that for right now. It did open up my simulator for us, so we've got that going. Yeah, and so where were we last time? Move this down a bit.
Started to get into the weeds a little bit with our styling.
Yeah. It was not. I'm going to be honest. I was pretty tired last time, and I think I was trying to rush this. So what I'm going to do, like looking back at this, is how I normally. No, I'm going to move this back over here. This Zoom is really bothering me. So this is kind of like jank, I think. Also kind of hard to read. This was our, yeah, so we have this screen that I'm on is the add beer component. And it's right here. It's like, looks pretty bad. Does this do anything? I forgot. I think we ended up with that not doing anything.
We were trying to get it to log out.
Yeah, and it was like not logging, right?
I think you got the log.
Did I get the log? LOL, I'm not trying to run it on Android. Figure that out in a second. Oh, interesting. So yeah, we've got all this stuff. We've got this add beer screen. This add beer screen is probably going to have a lot of stuff. We know that it's got this form that we want. So what I usually do is like, as part of my development process is try to already start breaking everything down into components. So instead of like this whole screen being like one component, like we know that there's going to be like add beer form, which is going to be basically all the stuff that we have written below. So like a bunch of this stuff, I feel like doesn't need to be like this whole screen. So I would like bring this up into here. I think it would be a fun exercise to just do that right away. And keep it fresh like this. So what I'm gonna do, and this is going to become a problem later, is I'm gonna just pull all of that state in there. And I'm going to, do we put the button in there too? Did put the button in there, cool. I'm gonna just delete everything here. Save that, we got nothing. And then I'm going to add beer form. And we're going to get, yeah, nothing because we are not returning anything. So every React component needs to return one React node on the render. So if this is not like, if I'm saying, hey, there's this component called add beer form, and it's like, oh, that's this thing, but it's not returning anything, it's gonna be like, no, that's not a React component. Similarly, if I did like view text hello, did something like this, it's also going to complain because I just broke the rule in a different way for React. This goes for React Native or React, but you can only give like one React node per component. So you probably will see this, like I run into this all the time because I'll like add something and like I'll not realize like I'm not nested inside of like a view or inside of something else. This comes up like all the time. Probably also in interviews. I think this is like a common question too. So like, what do you do if you get something like that? Adjacent JSX elements. So it's like this view and this view must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Did you want to add a JS fragment? This is like a much better error than it used to be. But like just by doing this is how you fix it. That's the simplest thing. It's like, here's a fragment, which is a special kind of thing in React. It's just like, hey, I'm an empty wrapping container, but that way I allow you to be just one node. On older code, you might see something like react.fragment instead, but this is like the modern syntax. The other thing you might see is instead of fragment, you might just have normally a view container around it in a React Native app, or a div in web. Although this is not the best practice because this may apply like override styles that you were assuming would be there. But yeah, so fragment is like the safest bet if you were to run into that in the real world. But we have our view container here. Yeah, so let's take a look at are there any questions so far, like where we're at, that little tangent I went off on fragments, or why in the world I decided to do this? Just copy and paste code into some other thing. Huh? Cool. Yeah, and if you were wondering how to clone the repo, if you go to this link, and I think GitHub just gives you this like nice, like you just copy and paste this. So like copy that or click the keyboard thing, go into like whatever folder you might want to be in, and just do a git clone and paste that, and it will copy the project in. And then once it's copied down, you can open it up as well. Yes. Oh yeah, and the link is, so the command would be like this. And then you could open that folder. It'll create a beer cellar folder in whatever folder you run that command in. I'll put that in the chat. Cool. Awesome. So I don't know why this is up. It's good. Good educational resource though. So we've got our ticket here in Jira. So there should be a beer logging form in the app. A user should be able to enter into seller details in a form. I guess that's like maybe a typo there. Should enter seller details in a form. Form fields to include brewery name, beer name, vintage, date acquired, number of units, price per unit, purchase location, units removed, drank or sold, untapped bid, untapped beer slug, and rating. So this is good. I wrote this user story, or like these product requirements in this ticket like a few months ago, which is great because that's like a totally different person that wrote it than me today. So I can treat this as like something I got from a product manager. And if a product manager sent me this, and this was like the ticket I got, the first thing I would do is be like, can this be broken out into more tickets? This seems like it's an epic instead of an issue ticket. And then I would ask, like, what of these things are actually requirements? Like, can I not ship this feature if it doesn't have whatever the heck an untapped BID or an untapped beer slug is? Or can I ship it if it just has like the beer name? Or the beer name and year, or the beer name and number of units. Like,
as a user, I don't know if I want a beer slug, to be honest.
It doesn't sound appetizing.
Doesn't sound good now.
Yeah, I think these were things that I looked at a while ago there was like an API that they have where you have like unique identifiers per beer, like based on vintage and all that. And if you have the beer slug, which is, I think, just like the link to that beer in their database, you can get like other people's ratings and metadata information about the beer. But yeah, I would immediately question this if a product manager handed me this and be like, okay, can we break this down? What's the MVP? What is the minimum viable product here for this, and what can we push off? So what I'm going to do right now is do just that. I'm going to, instead of this being a single ticket like that, I'm going to go in our backlog. Oh, I don't know how to use Jira Cloud apparently. Anybody know how to create a anybody know how to create an epic in oh, that's how. Okay. Log a beer. Okay, we already have epic. Okay. Log of beer, view all details. Let's open this guy up. And let's create beer logging form. We're going to edit this like beer logging form MVP. Make it like that. And MVP just stands for like minimum viable product. Like what is the minimum thing that we can possibly ship here? And then beer logging form, untapped integration. And I'm going to create another one that is like, what are the other things we have? I'm just going to paste it in here. Beer logging form, optional fields. And open this up. And I'm going to paste all these. And so what's going to be optional? So untapped is going to be its own separate thing. Rating is going to be I think this can be like its own, like you can rate your own beer. Brewery name, beer name, that's like required, I think. And number of units, does that seem like reasonable to you all? Like, so for this minimum thing, we have date, vintage can all be optional. You at least just have to say like what the brewery and beer name is and the number of them that you have.
If you care about the number of units, do you also care about the purchase price?
I guess so. So maybe just knowing, maybe the only requirements then are you should be able to say like, I have this beer. That's like the minimum that you need to be able to have. So say that's the minimum. And then vintage, so that's like the year, aka the year. Date when you bought it, the number that you have, the price that you have, that you paid, where you bought it, how many you've taken, and like your own rating. I think these, so this is also a common thing, is like the things that come after the MVP are also things that could probably be split up. Like user ratings could probably be its own epic or series of epics. So I'm just going to keep it like that. Keep these bare minimum fields. And then I think we created a untapped integration. Yeah. This one is like untapped rating. Something like that. And this is probably something, honestly, that we'll probably come back to like way later in this project, because that's going to require like integration. We're going to need an API key and figure out how that whole API works. So some fields. I'm just going to create like a note here to myself on the epic. So we're like, the way, if you're not familiar with Jira, it's like you can have Jira. I have my own organization, which is just me at the moment. And I only have one project, which is this Beer Vault Mobile, which is actually should be called Beer Cellar at this point, because we decided that's the name. And then in that project, I have these like epics, which are like big stories that the app should, like functionality should have. And then within those is like various like detailed pieces of work that should be well defined. Like this one, a user should be able to enter seller details in a form. And the forms to include are just brewery name and beer name. We should probably have something like they should be saved and persisted across. It should be saved and persisted across app uses. I don't know.
Sessions.
Yeah, across app sessions. So like they should be able to log it and they should be able to log it somewhere, which is just the minimum requirement we have. So yeah, we can, what is that? Okay, this is a little different than the Jira I have at work. But I like it. All right, so we'll work on this ticket, which we have actively on our board. We're gonna put this in progress because we're gonna be working on it now. And yeah, and in like a real project, you'd see like a ton of other tickets like define the design system and things like that. But for right now, we'll just have this. Is Epic part of Jira lingo, or is this some new agile term? I'm used to stories. I think epics go outside of Jira lingo, but it's very Jira. Like you basically, an epic could be like a story, depending on how you want to use it. But typically, an epic would be comprised of multiple user stories. And each user story could be like one task or a set of tasks. Like honestly, I think this differs not just from like company to company, but from like team to team. So it's mostly like what are the agreed upon definitions of these things with the people that you're working with on them. So like you're working with like 3 engineers, a designer, a product manager, QA, like you should all just have a shared understanding of what these terms mean to you and your group. We use Shorthand instead of Jira and has the concept of FX as well. Okay, cool. Yeah. Cool. So they should be able to log a. You should be able to enter, and we're just doing name and brewery. So we're gonna just like remove. Oh, we should add those notes. So I think that was the thing we came up with last time. Let me just add this real quick so we don't forget. Notes, like great feature to have in any kind of app because it's like a catch-all, like a user can enter whatever they want. You haven't thought of everything they want to add.
SQL injection, whatever they want.
Hopefully not. Let's see. Let's delete all this stuff. So this was like all of our, I should say before I delete. So this is a text input. There was the notes, which is just this like blank notes thing here. Price and year, we've decided to remove. We're not storing them in state here anymore. Year is not something we care about. This is just like what we're logging out. And yeah, that should be good. So we can like enter in stuff here. I can bring up the keyboard with Command K in the simulator. Oh, this is, by the way, this is fingers. This is like the hardest thing to do on an app. But you can do like pinching and stuff. My camera battery just died. So give me 1 second to get that going. I always feel like as soon as I'm about to start coding, like something comes up.
Well, at least you've got that amazing logo in the background.
For those that are unaware, Taylor is the artist behind the logo and branding of React.js. So shout out to Taylor.
We'll say artist in air quotes.
All right, is this, are we online? We are online. All right. So one thing that I'm surprised no one has talked about is like how disgusting this style is. on this text input. So let's look at text input React Native. So this is something I'm always doing, even though I've been coding React Native for like 6 years, is going to the docs for like very basic things like how do I make an input look decent. So this is like a pretty good base. If you're starting in like a new app and you don't have any of these things defined, this can oftentimes be the quickest way to get going. So that's right, we did not actually define that. We'll come back to that. So we're just gonna straight up copy and paste this input. So you saw what I just did there. I just went to the React Native docs. Well, I typed in Google text input React Native. Took me right here to the text input component from React Native. They have an example up here on the top, and I just copied this style here from that style sheet and put it into my style sheet called input. And now I'm going to apply that style. So style, the style prop is now styles.input. And we're going to apply the same style up here. I'm just putting it in between on change text and value, just for my own like preference of having it all in alphabetical order. But there's no actual like technical reason why it needs to be there. But yeah, now we've got that. I'm gonna get the keyboard out of the way. Let's refresh here.
One thing that we haven't really talked about, or maybe we haven't talked about in a while, is the use of linting and something like Prettier inside of your code base.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if we have to go into detail, but it's something that I can't use. I can't not use.
Yeah, and I should say, yeah, it's one of those things that like you just take for granted. So I didn't even think to cross my mind to say anything, but like the reason why this formatting happened like that is because I pressed Option Shift F, which is not something easy to remember. Format document is the name for it in VS Code. What that will use is it will use this Prettier configuration. Prettier is just a project. We'll probably throw up a link somewhere. Prettier is just a project, as the name suggests, to make code prettier. Their catchline is opinionated code formatter. It's basically like it comes with a bunch of default rules and whatnot. You can change this to whatever you want, but the nice thing is like you create this file, it's shared in your project. So if you're working with one other person or 100 other people, they're going to have the same prettier setup. So you don't end up with like doing code review, for instance, on like a file that says there's 100 lines of code change, but really there's only one thing that changed, but 99 other lines that are just formatting changes because they have a different formatting way. And also
Thousand lines of indenting.
Yeah, it's basically making like a very opinionated thing. So like in JavaScript, a single quote and a double quote is essentially the same thing, but seeing it in your code base, like some are single quotes, some are double quotes, like no, let's all just be one.
Is there a way to get it to ignore Prettier if you have it set like you have it set there, to get it to ignore it in one instance? Like I had to hunt down trailing comma all and get rid of it because it was messing something up in my code. Is there any way to to just ignore that on one page or one instance?
Yep, right there.
Oh, cool.
So this is in JSX, which is what you'd be using with React. So you just like do it like that. Very similar to like ESLint, which is another thing. Linting is like little bit stronger than just formatting, as probably like how I would describe it. And that will be defined in your ESLint RC. Here we are just extending all of the general rules of the React Native community ESLint. But ESLint, so this is like a bit more, whereas like Prettier is just your formatting of your code, so it's like easier and consistently formatted for everyone to read. ESLint is actually something that will catch like what could become bugs in your code beforehand. That's sort of like how I think of it. Some of it is opinionated though. But
And they can be used together, and often are, I would say, in most projects.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, we're definitely, these are both kind of tools that you don't need to spend that much time with. But you can, they are very, very useful. Like the time that you do spend with them is like very, very rewarding for your project's value. And like making it so that you don't hate working in a code base because every file is just different opinions about how it should be formatted and all that. And ESLint is pretty great. Like it'll find a lot of things. Like we can break some stuff here. Why don't we do like, what if we do like, like that. I think ESLint will catch this, right? Yeah. Well, it caught it in a different way than I expected. It caught it in this no unused vars. So this is like an example of ESLint catching something. So this is obviously not how I should be using use state, but it has caught first this error of like, hey, this thing shouldn't be here, this variable that I've declared here, basically. It's assigned a value, but never used. So that's a typical ESLint thing you'll see. You also see a similar squiggly line up here. It's probably the same kind of problems here, like with alert. Alert, I'm importing it from React Native. I'm never using it. So ESLint is like, hey, don't do that. Same with light pink is defined, but never used. And one thing that's nice here is like, it gives you it's saying like ESLint is the reason why you're getting this squiggly line. It's telling you this error or this warning. And it also gives you the link to the specific rule that it violated in ESLint, which is super nice. So you can see like what is this rule? What will it catch? What won't it catch? And what's the reasoning behind it? Which is super nice. I bet you if I do something like this. So I'm just going to use this variable in like the most basic way. And then this should probably be upset. Yeah, so now it's really getting into some prettier stuff there. It's just letting me do it. Okay, bad example. I don't have a rule about like, you shouldn't have a third thing there. Yeah, like all these red squigglies that I have here are like, here's prettier, I think, or ESLint saying like, hey, you shouldn't have that. And I just like out of habit, it's just Option Shift F all the time. But it's the same thing as like if you do format document. Like I can show you that. So here, Option Shift F, right? And then format document, you can also see there that that's the all right. So we have now this, which is just really difficult to read. We're gonna do that. Border color, and we said we weren't gonna do literals, right? So we can do like, I want to make these gray. So we'll pull this in from, instead of just saying the white, we'll use our variable gray. And we need to import that from our colors. And there we go. So got a beer name. Let's work on this a little bit. Let's make this a little bit easier on the eye. So border radius, which will like create curves on the edge. We can go wild with that and make almost circles if we wanted to. Like I could go like as far as I can, and that should be as rounded as possible. But let's just do like 12 for right now. And if you remember from like last time, like we shouldn't be using these literals. Like, so this is like the literal 12 here as a number. We aren't using literals for the colors. We're pulling that in from this place, our colors file, which you can see I'm importing from up here, import and gray from style.colors. That's this file. And the reason why we don't want to do like literal things like that is because if we wanted to change like the border radius on all buttons, that would be a real pain to go through every single button or every single input in this case and change that. So we should definitely do make this a constant, not a literal. And I'm going to copy that and I'm going to yell at myself all over the place here. I use this format always for to-dos because then I can just search for all my to-dos very easily. If I also had like created a ticket, for instance, in Jira, like like something like fix input literal size usage or something like that, and I had like a ticket number, like it would be BM like 123. I would put that like here, BM 123 as like the Jira ticket. So then also like I know that it's very easy to find when I come back to here. These are like little tricks that like I've added to the way I work over the years to make my life easier. Yeah. Also, you may be wondering why these to-dos are orange. That is this right here. Better comments. I think I can copy that and put it in the chat. Yeah, I got it. Oh, it's a lot. Yeah, so that's an awesome plugin. I can show you how it works. No, what is it called? Settings. So this is like in my VS Code settings, I have this better comments, like specific setup. So I can say like here, any comment that starts with an exclamation point, make it red. Any comment that starts with a question mark, make it blue. Any comment that starts with fix me, make it white. Comment out anything like double slash with gray. Anything with the word to do, make it orange for these comments, right? And a couple other rules here. These things I just have like it's easy for me to see. Like, oh, there's orange stuff that's a to do, or like, oh my god, this is horrible. Like that red is going to like work. Also done it in another project with other people where I maybe was a bit passive aggressive, but I added this extension to our shared settings and made this like with a background of like red and like white text, so like it looked really ugly and really bad. I would add that to things that I thought needed to be fixed. But anyway, yeah, so we've got this. I'm gonna like add maybe size. What's the size? Yeah, font size, and then like I think we had some values for this. Big text, button text size. Let's create another one for like input text size. Make that, I don't know, also make it 20, but it should be its own thing in case we wanted to change just the inputs. I'm already importing big text. We were creative with those names last time, weren't we?
That's
Yeah.
all you. Don't blame me for that.
We've also got like a bunch of space like between the inputs, but not much above the button. Like that seems really crowded to me. So I think like the button should just be at the bottom regardless. Like however much stuff is going to be on this page, like that button should just be anchored at the bottom. Right? Does that make sense? Like, oh, that's not what I'm going to do. Like if we had something like like that, like, okay, now we can't even get to the submit. So like imagine like we actually add all those fields we wanted to add. Like that's gonna be like really hard to you're not gonna be able to submit it, right? So why don't we do this right? I'm gonna create like another view. We're gonna put it down here. Now, this isn't gonna make that much sense yet, but bear with me. Let's create a scroll view. And again, this won't make a lot of sense yet. Maybe some of you are figuring out what I'm about to do. Let's throw that in there. So I'm just importing scroll view from React Native, which is a scrollable view. So something like now, if I were to do a bajillion of these, it's in a scrollable list. And oh, what have I done? Pull down the oh, this is like the worst thing about working with simulators, like when you pull down stuff like that. Can't get out of it. There we go. So now like everything's in a scrollable view, and this like add beer is just like down here at the bottom. What I would do at that point is like also make this in its own thing. We're gonna like, this would be like a very common way to name these things is something like the style for this would be like button container. And we do not actually have that defined yet. And basically all I want to do for this button container right now is like one flex one. So like it should always take up like as much space as it needs. Actually, yeah, we'll deal with that in a second. And some margin. Yeah. Should be good. Yeah, so we could see like now you see right where they break there. Now the scroll view is also not well styled, so let's style that up. Styles dot it's like input fields container, something like that. Naming's hard, but yeah, decide on like being more verbose than not. With, so this is like another interesting one we can do. I think that's how you write it. So now if you notice, nothing happened. Cool, cool, cool. Flex one. Still nothing. Oh, we can do something really cool here. So we could do like like 10,000, right? Do 100. Should be able to do 100%. I don't know why that's not working. That's one. Yeah, but we can do something like even cooler here. I'm just going to collapse all that for right now. And we're going to do this. So use dimensions React Native. So there's, let me just go with dimensions first. This is concept of dimensions in React Native, which you can get the window or the screen height and width. Also get these other things like the scale, which is like the scaling of pixels. So like on mobile phones, like 1 pixel is scaled like I think up to like 4x on like a iPad or something like that. But yeah, mainly what you're going to be concerned with is like the height and width when using it. Yeah, so and they actually created this like really nice simple hook. All you have to do is this, which we'll show right here. So I'm going to plop it.
Hey, Eric, I just want to give you a heads up that it's about 6:35 your time.
Yeah, good call. Okay, this will be the last thing we do today, just because I think both Taylor and I are a little bit over what we can be right now. So for right now, I'm just going to use it like this, which basically it's a React hook. It's a special one called use window dimensions from React Native. It's giving us the height and width of the screen. You might be wondering, like, why does this need to be a hook? Like, can't you just tell me what the height and width is of the screen? Well, like there, I just changed it. Like on orientation, you're changing it. This gets even more complicated when you have like an iPad, for instance, which if you've used the iPad recently, you may have noticed they have like multi-view. So there's like, you can take up a third of the screen, half the screen, 2/3 of the screen, or you can be a floating little app. And like these multiple like multitasker views that they have on iPad now. So it's really good to be listening, like basically you have to have an event listener listening to those changes. But that's all like handled for you in this hook. So now we have height and width. And what I can do here on the scroll view is with style, what you can do is you can pass in an array instead of just one single object. And that inside of there can be, you can pass in other styles and it will override. So like if something, I think it's this direction, if something is like in this sense here, like later in the array, it will take precedence. Like, so if I defined a value for width in the input fields container, I defined width as 100, which is what that style is. But because I also defined width here, and actually this is like shorthand. So let me go the long full hand first. So in input fields container in this style object, we said width is 100 pixels, but then we actually made this an array, as you can see here with this bracket. And we also passed in width inside of a style object here. So this is overriding the width that's declared earlier. If I put this width like at the beginning, it would be overwritten by the 100 that's in this style. Does that make sense? And then that shorthand I did was like with, I think we talked about this last time too. Object, what was the object shorthand notation? Something, object field shorthand. I can't remember the actual technical term for it, but basically because width is the same name as, like the width key is the same name as width, this variable that I'm have here. I can just say like the width is just width. And that will work here. I can also do like width minus like 50 if I wanted to. Oh, but in that case, I would have to actually write it out like that. So yeah, you do like 500, then it should be like almost nothing. Yeah, it's just the minimum amount. So would not recommend doing it like that in this situation. And like, there's not a huge win. There's no like performance increase by like doing it like this versus doing it like that. It's the same thing. Shorthand. Object property value shorthand. Thank you. I will forget that the next time as well. Yeah, so now we have brewery name and beer name a bajillion times. Let's like remove that. But that was the so now I think this like screen is more or less sort of laid out. Like we can definitely do a lot to make this better. Like this should absolutely be left aligned and not center. That's like very weird visual hierarchy. We definitely want to like get rid of all these other things, but these other text inputs will probably be added later for the other fields that we want to do. But that's basically what we want, right? So now, like, no matter how short the screen is, like it's in a scroll view, we can add as many fields as we want. It's just going to be a scrollable view, and we can then just like add the beer. So we can do like Budweiser, and then Bud Light, and then we should be good. Boom. And then we should have that logged, I think, if we still have that working. Oh, we didn't get we didn't get our logging set up. Okay, cool. So we have it over here. Here in our logs. No, we don't. Well, we'll get it. We'll get it actually logging into something in our dev setup next time. But yeah, Taylor and I are 10 minutes over our time for this time. I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna push it up like right now. So the differences we had here is we like added, like if we added a change here and a change here. So like I'm just gonna commit them all. Say like session 3. I think this is our 3rd session. Like clean up, add beer screen, and like add input size constant. Probably don't need to add that much. Not that great of a commit message, but should be fine. I commit that, and then I'm gonna like get push. I'm gonna do everything from in here in VS Code. Permission denied. Okay, cool. And I'm not gonna set up VS Code right now for this. I'm gonna do this instead. Get push. Ooh. Uh-oh. What's going on with this? Okay, well, apparently my stuff is borked. Let's see. Failed to push some refs to get a verification, but is rejected because the remote contains work that you do not have locally. Oh, did I? Wait, why would it have, like, what's going on there? So it's saying like there's some changes here that I don't have. I added a readme straight on that. Okay, there we go. So that should be pushed up now. Yeah, Git was complaining that like I had failed to push some refs because I had changes on the remote. So like up here on GitHub, the remote, that I didn't have locally. And it was saying you might want to first integrate the remote changes, like by doing a git pull, pulling those remote changes before pushing again. I could have probably just forced it, but the only changes that were here was like I added this README file on GitHub, and I didn't actually pull down those changes. But now I did, and then I pushed it up. Yeah, if this was something that like this happened to you on like a project you're working with other people on, you probably would want to take like a better look at what you're pulling and pushing. Also, it probably wouldn't happen because you wouldn't be pushing directly to main, which I'm doing here. You'd probably be doing like a branch, but we should do that for the next session, I think, to like really get the flow in. So like really what I should be doing is like get checkout, BM, or do something like that, maybe, which is the Jira ticket name, or doing like git checkout, develop, or dev, or something like that. But yeah. Any last questions? I know Taylor, you got to jump. I can stay on for like another minute or two to answer some questions, but we will be back next week for more. Thanks, Taylor. Any questions from anybody before we sign off?
Thanks a lot, man. These are great. Really appreciate them.
Cool. We're happy to do them. I see some questions here in the chat. Vigorous framework. So one, some more idea about design patterns and standard project folder structure, and guide me in how I can start from scratch to end. Yeah, perfect. You're in the right place. We haven't put up the recordings yet from the first two sessions, but there is, I think, in the first session, like we go pretty detailed into like the organizational structure of the files and folders here. So there's definitely more there on that topic. This project was all created with the React Native CLI, which is if you go here.
Are the videos not on Twitch?
So it turns out, yeah, they are. We're streaming live to Twitch, but Twitch removes them after 14 days.
Oh,
So we have to like download them and then export them to YouTube. So they will be up. We just haven't gotten around to like getting them on YouTube yet. But yeah, I posted a link. If you follow like these steps for Mac OS and like, I don't know, iOS or something, or Android, it doesn't really matter. The main thing is like, like all the stuff that I'm skimming over is like stuff you have to do only one time on your computer, and you can initialize and run as many React Native projects as you want. But when you do get ready, you are set up, you just run this like npx React Native init, and then your project name, whatever you want to call it, which is what we ran to start this project. And it creates like almost all of these files and folders you see here. We manually created the source src folder, which is a pretty standard folder structure pattern. And that's where we're going to put like all of our application code. Node modules is just your JavaScript dependencies. iOS and Android folders are just your respective build and project folders for iOS. So you've got like your Xcode project. in Android, you've got like your Gradle set up and your everything else there for Android. And then you got like a test folder, which we haven't written any tests yet. We'll get to that. Inside of your source, which is like where you're going to write most of your business logic. Here so far, we have a components folder, which is like shared React Native components that we've written. So for like our button, we're just calling it BC button, BC for beer seller, which is the name of our app. So this is like, hey, we know this is not just a button. This is like our project specific button. Same with the rest of here. And screens, these are like might be called screens, might be called routes, but you usually have like a folder that is just the actual components that are your screens. So in this case, it's like the home, the add beer, and the my beer. And then what we did was we also had an index.js so that when you ask for things from screens, you don't have to know the actual file name. Everything is just exported from this index.js. It's also a pattern, not necessarily the most common. Like there are different ways of doing this, different opinions, but which is one way we demonstrated here. And styles, where we have like our style constants, which these will like definitely evolve more. But right now it's just like we define these constants here so that we can change them in this one place and it affects the whole app versus having to go into every single place to change if we wanted to change like our brand color, for instance. Then the rest of the stuff, yarn is just like locking. This is automatic. We don't write any of this ourselves, but yarn, which is package manager, is making sure to lock all of our dependencies. So when we install packages, like it's locking them all. So if I were to share this or you're running it on your computer, you're going to install the exact versions that I have running on mine. Sketch, this is actually a design file that we made in Sketch. I just saved it in this folder. README, package.json, which is your dependency list essentially, and your scripts that you're running. Metro, that's specific for React Native. You can use Metro for a web app, but I don't think anyone does except for Facebook. But it's a bundle, it's a packager for JavaScript made by Facebook, and specifically React Native projects use it. This is just our entry point for our app, index.js, which just the main thing here to look at is that it imports app from app, which is here, which is our entry point, like more or less our entry point for our app. Babel config, which is just configuration for Babel. We haven't done anything here. It's just what it comes with. We haven't done anything here except for our changing our name to beer seller. Watchman is just, we have no config here, but Watchman just looks for file changes. So that it can auto refresh if you save a file. Prettier, we talked about earlier, formatting code. Get ignores, just like this also we didn't add anything to. This comes automatically, but you definitely want to have this in a React Native project because you don't want to be committing like all of your iOS and Android builds to your Git repository. Same with like your node modules and all that. Pretty cool. How can we handle fonts? Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So we'll get into that right now. We are not doing anything special with fonts, but we will. Right now, like the way this would work is you'd be using the default fonts on iOS and Android. So the fonts would look a little bit different on Android if I remember correctly. But we can declare our own fonts. We will need to bring them in as dependencies. It's a little different than like a web app where you could point to like a resource on a like a web resource, like a you have like a fonts file somewhere hosted somewhere, like on a CDN or a server or whatever somewhere, and you can just pull it in dynamically. For us in a React Native app or in a mobile app, like that's not really the way you should do it. You should bundle the font into the app. So we'll show how to do that, to do a custom fonts. Yeah. This flow config, we can actually probably just delete this. I don't think we need this. This thing, yeah. But yeah, definitely check out. There's like more. I just spent a few minutes talking about it now. There's more in the first session. We talk about the folder structure. Any other questions? I got about 2 minutes before I need to jump off. Cool. Well, if you do remember anything, feel free to like post it in the comments on the meetup page. And we will be back in a week. Oh, I see we have one more question here. Why start with a function component? Yeah, that's a good question. So in React, there used to be like class components, and yeah, the move has been to like go to function components. So if you're writing like new React components, just start with function components. There's like one use case where you need a class component, but essentially that would be just like one place in your entire app. So just use function components, or less lines of code. You're not taking a performance hit, and it's, I think, easier to reason about, easier to read as well. But we can definitely talk about that more next time as well if you have other questions. It's a really good one. You will definitely see that in like the real world and like a larger project, like a mix of class and function components. Cool. See you all hopefully next time. Thanks for coming. Bye.